Hey guys, this video we're going to keep it very naturopathic and we're going to discuss the physical body's ability, innate, inbuilt ability to exist in a state of health. The body's natural state of being, which is a state of equilibrium and is a state of homeostasis. So this brings it back to very basic, very fundamental, very foundational naturopathic principles, which really explore and really kind of champion the fact that each person possesses the ability to exist in a state of health. And what the naturopath does, or the naturopath is traditionally trained to do, and which you guys can begin to facilitate for yourselves, is to look at the things that the individual is doing which is keeping them from existing in that state of being. So what we're saying here is that each individual is born with it's like this nice centered space, this state that they can exist in, which involves environment and external factors, but mostly involves the internal environment, which is about health, and in which that person is stable and experiences equilibrium and homeostasis. And this is built into every physical body. But and what it also suggests, and what we're getting at here, is that it's the things that we do which cause us to move out of that state of equilibrium and to experience dis-ease. So the things, we'll look mostly at the things that we do on a personal level, but this definitely does involve environmental factors. So it involves toxins in the air, fertilizers, the environment that you grew up in, the family that you grew up in, any abuse that you may have experienced from outside of you, if the weather is suitable to the kind of body that you are in, and all sorts of factors. But we're going to just bring it back today and keep it really simple and look at the things that we, on a personal, individual level, do that take us out of that state of equilibrium and out of that state of health. So one of the first thing that we look at in naturopathy is removing obstacles to cure. So what that means is we're looking at removing the habits, removing the behaviours, removing the things which do not affirm and allow health to be. And that is across the board. So that's through a lot of things. We can look at diet, we can look at lifestyle, we can look at thought patterns, we can look at emotional patterns, we can look at self-abuse, we can look at all sorts of things, because all sorts of things are contained within that. All of the things that we do to ourselves or with ourselves, the things that we subject ourselves to, and sleeping patterns and things like that that take us out of this state of equilibrium. So the first thing that we're doing in our quest to return to health and return to a state of harmony and homeostasis is looking at the things that do not work, looking at the things that keep us out of that state of equilibrium. So that's looking at sugar addiction, that's looking at alcohol addiction, that's looking at smoking, that's looking at physical exercise or lack thereof, it's looking at sleep, it's looking at all of the things that you think, the way that you feel, the way that you emote, the relationships that you enter into, and looking at the things that do not promote and do not encourage that very natural state of being. Because it's the naturopath's understanding, and I wholeheartedly agree with this, that once we remove the things that do not work, the things that take us out of that state of equilibrium, once we remove those negative or harmful habits, habitual ways of eating, thinking, sleeping, all of it, breathing, drinking, all of it, then the body, because it possesses this ability to move into a state of equilibrium, and in fact our bodies seek to exist in that state of equilibrium. It is only us and the things that we are doing or the things that are happening to us that bring us out of that state of equilibrium. So if we stop that and we remove the things that harm us, cause us to not exist in a state of health, then very, very naturally, it's a very natural thing that the body will begin to undergo a healing process and return to that state of homeostasis, return to a state of equilibrium, return to a state of health, because that's just what the body does. That's what the body is programmed to do. So what that's telling us is that if we're not experiencing that state of health, that state of equilibrium, it's either or our external environment or some things that we are doing that are keeping us from existing in that state, because it is possible. It is possible. Of course, there are shortcomings. Some people are born with certain traits or diseases or with a leg missing or whatever, but even for those people, there is a way that they can exist in equilibrium with their environment and with themselves, where they are not in a constantly diseased state, and they can live in harmony with whatever it is that they have inherited from their environment or from their genetics or through accidents or whatever it is that has occurred. So we're the biggest blocks to us experiencing health. And so often what I see with ones that walk into my clinic, but I see it a lot with other naturopaths and in allopathic medicine a lot as well, and this is something that I feel as a collective we're beginning to address and is going to become less and less as we move more into the feeling side of healing, and healing as an art form rather than healing as just a purely science-based thing. But I see a lot of people doing too much. So they're doing those obstacles to cure have not yet been removed. They're still engaging in things that are harmful to them or that do not evoke their natural state of health. And then they're doing all of these things on top of that to try and remedy that and to try and make that better and to try and make that go away. So they may not have corrected their sleep, or they may still be in an abusive relationship that isn't serving them, or living in a place where the weather conflicts with them, or whatever it is, and they're still engaging in that. They're not eating properly or whatever, and we'll uncover that a bit more because eating properly looks different for everyone. And then they try to remedy that by putting things on top of. So by taking their magnesium or taking their herbs in the morning that are going to give them that energy boost, or taking herbs so that they can sleep at night, which is, all of these things are fine in the short term, but they're really, really supportive actually when encouraging the body to move back into that state of equilibrium. But people become dependent on these things, and instead of these things becoming something that supports the body's natural process of returning to a state of health, they become like a fix-me, something that I need. It's a band-aid that I keep putting over my scar or over my wound because it's not healing. And they become dependent on these things. So they're doing things on top of to make up for the things that are not working. So often when people walk into my clinic, I see them taking this huge long list of all these different supplements, and there's all these different things that they're doing and that they're putting into their bodies to try and remedy this state of disharmony that they're experiencing, to try and remedy this state of dis-ease that they're experiencing. And so often what we need to go through is this process of, okay, do less. Do less of that. Let's only look at what you need from that big long list of all the things that you're doing and you're putting into your system. What do you actually need to support your body to overcome what it's going through? And then how do we remove the things that you're doing that aren't keeping you from experiencing a state of health? So that's where we look at removing excess supplements, which can be stressful for the body anyway. If you've got that constant intake, then the liver's working hard, the kidneys are working hard, and it's too much pressure for the body. Where what we really need to be doing is coming back to ourselves and feeling into what does that state of equilibrium feel like for us. And here I'm just going to say that that is different for everyone. Because again, a lot of what I see is people walking in to the clinic and they've got this regime set out, and this diet that they're on, and this way that they eat, this way that they exercise, this check-off list that they go through every day, and it looks great on paper. It looks great. It looks like they're doing all of the right things. But when we explore it a bit more and get a bit more of a feel for what actually works for that person, we come to the realization that, okay, so that looks great, but it doesn't actually work for you. So what these people have done is they've gone to the textbook or to the research, or they've looked at what their friend is doing, or they've taken on what some person in authority has said, and they've just run with it without first checking in and feeling in to whether that actually is what's going to work for them. Because again, this state of equilibrium, this state of health, which is very natural for all of us, is going to look different for all of us. What is going to promote that state of health and that sense of well-being is going to be different for each and every individual. So there is not one script and one way of doing things that can be prescribed to everyone. So looking at what someone else is doing, it's okay to get ideas from what other people are doing. That's a great way to explore and begin to feel into what works for you. But it's not about taking that on, copying and pasting it over the top of you and your life and then running with that. It's about removing the things that don't work, which includes removing a lack of exercise, removing a lack of sleep, removing the foods that aren't working and that are disrupting homeostasis that you may not be tolerating so well, removing the thought patterns, removing the things that take you out of equilibrium and coming back to the self. Because once you remove those bad habits and the things that don't work, there's this very natural, again, it's innate thing within you that will begin to wake up, and it will begin to communicate with you, and it will begin to tell you what it needs. You'll begin to feel the kinds of foods that resonate really well with your system, and you'll find that you eliminate a lot of these problems that you have with your gut, a lot of the problems that you have with inflammation, with skin issues, with kidney issues, because you're listening to what the body actually requires of you, what the body actually needs in that moment. And all of us have this in us. Like we have this, it's like the body's alive in a different kind of way, and that communication can always be there. That communication is always open and always available to us, but we override it, again, with the things that we're doing, with the things that we're putting into our bodies, that we're distracting ourselves with, that we're taking ourselves out of our bodies for, that we're putting on top of, and all these things that we keep plastering on and on and on, and we're getting stressed about it, and it's not working, and why doesn't anything work, and why am I like this, and why is everything so bad, and why am I such a bad person, and there's the thoughts and the emotions and all of that that comes with it, instead of just going, okay, stop. Stop all of it. Just stop it. Remove it all. Come back to here. Instead of doing out here, trying to fix things by putting things in and putting things out, it's just stop, come back, feel. Instead of doing, come back to feeling, because the body will communicate with you through feeling to let you know what it is that it requires in each moment. The kind of exercise that works for different body types is different. It varies so extremely across that scale. And if you remove the bad habit, which would be laziness, or the bad habit, which would be overexertion, because some people go way over the top and cause themselves all kinds of harm and inflammation and toxic load from overdoing it. Remove those bad habits. So you go through the process of eliminating laziness and eliminating the need to overdo things and overachieve. Come back to that natural state of being. Then the body will let you know it's time for some yoga. Today it's time for some real cardiac workout. Let's go for a run. Let's go for a walk on the beach. Today I really need to be in water. And it will tell you, you'll feel it. And it won't be like a loud voice shouting in your ear. So that's why it's important to be in that feeling space where you can listen in here and begin to get a feel for what the body actually needs. And if you remove the bad eating habits, if you remove the addiction to sugar or the tendency to rely on stimulants or the tendency to rely on carbs and to overeat really simple foods that give you that quick fix, and if you remove the tendency to starve yourself or to overindulge or to skip meals or whatever the habits are that aren't working for you, you remove all of that, going through a process of feeling and healing and eliminating the things that aren't working, and come back to that natural state of being, then the body will tell you, it will talk to you. Some of our bodies function way better on a plant-based diet. Some bodies that I've come across, as it currently stands, things might improve as vegetarian options improve, but they require that extra protein that comes from eating meat. Some bodies are better with lots of wet, soft foods that are really easy to consume, like lots of soups and stews and smoothies and things like that, whereas some foods thrive on raw foods where it's all crunchy and it's fresh and it's full of color and it's grounded in a different way. Some people need lots of those root vegetables, so the vegetables that really grow under the earth in the soil, and there's something about that that keeps them really grounded and keeps them really anchored into the body and just supports their system in some way. It's different for everyone, and it needs to be allowed to be different for everyone, and you need to give yourself permission to explore what it is for you and to feel in on a day-by-day basis. And again, you need to be open to it changing. Just because something worked for you last week or worked for you yesterday doesn't mean that it's the best thing that you can do for yourself today. And that's why it needs to be flexible, and you need to be listening so you can receive those messages. I know that that's the case for me. There are some days where my body really wants good forms of soy. And then there are other days when my body says, don't put that in me, because it feels like it's going to be inflaming today. So I just listen to that and I go with that. And that's where everyone needs to be at. And that's what it's about. It's about removing the things that don't work so you can come back to here. Because the second thing that naturopaths do after removing the obstacles to cure is stimulating the healing power of nature. So what that is it's stimulating the body's natural, innate ability to return to a state of health. And we do that by listening, by letting ourselves be as we are, reconnecting with nature, spending time being still, calming the mind, and creating the kind of environment where the body can go through a process of returning to a state of health. Because it doesn't just happen overnight. You can't just remove all of the things that aren't working and then suddenly be healthy. The body needs to be allowed to have the time and space to go through a healing process. But you need to trust that your body will very naturally navigate towards health. It will. The body never naturally navigates towards a state of dis-ease. Again, it's the things that we are doing or that the environment is doing that cause us to head down into that state of disease. So if we remove that, the body will begin to tread a course and set a course for health and for equilibrium. And it's letting the body go through that process, because often what we see when we start to support the body and it starts to set its eyes and set the trajectory for health, is it often goes through a healing crisis. And that's okay. A reversal of symptoms. It's going through a reversal of the process that got you to the point, got you to the state of health that you are currently experiencing. It's like going backwards, back down that path, because your state of equilibrium is here. You've gone down that path and it's coming back this way so that you can experience health again, which means stepping all of the steps that took you that way, but in reverse. So often what we see in clinic is when we begin to do that with clients and we begin to work in that way and we begin to eliminate the things that aren't working and really start tonifying and supporting the systems through herbs and sleep and different things that may be required for that person to begin to go through that healing process. Often there's lethargy or a rash on the skin or some state of being like going through like a liver flush. So there's a cleansing that happens and suddenly there's all these toxins released into the body, and that's a very natural part of healing. That's a very natural part of returning back to homeostasis. So it's providing the space and the environment that is necessary for the body to actually fulfill going through that process. Because some people get partway through that process and then retreat because it's a bit too uncomfortable or it's a bit too confronting or it's taking too long. It's letting your body go through that process by continuing to remove the things that aren't working, remove the habits that are dysfunctional, and letting the body very naturally begin to come back to that state of homeostasis. And it does take time, but you need to be okay with it taking time. The reason that allopathic medicine normally, not all the time, doesn't take as long as the holistic natural healing process is because it's not getting to the root cause. Or these medications and these things, although they of course can be supportive in supporting our systems and supporting our body as we come back to that state of homeostasis, unfortunately allopathic medicine is often prescribed as a band-aid, as a cover-up. So you're having this symptom and we'll give you this medicine which will temporarily make you feel better because it took away the symptom. But it's not getting down to the root and to the cause. So it's not allowing your body to go through that process of coming back to health. It's just mimicking a temporary state of health. And again, not always, and there are times and situations where allopathic medicine is so needed, and don't just go and ditch that stuff. Don't just come off those medications that your doctor has prescribed for you. You always work with a trained medical professional to come off that stuff. That's absolutely not what I'm saying. Don't take that into your own hands and begin to do that. But do begin to look at and feel into what a state of equilibrium feels like for you, and then work with the ones that can work with you to help you to come back into that state of being. Because this is about your systems literally returning to a state of health, removing the things that aren't working and coming back to a state of health, which is a stepped out process and which does take time, because it's not just taking that dysfunction and then plastering it up and wrapping it up and pretending that it's okay. It's actually going into the dysfunction and healing it, harmonizing it, purifying it from the inside out. And that's when you really begin to experience a true experience of health, of being in health, being in that state of equilibrium. But that first step always is going to be looking at the obstacles to health, the things that get in the way of health being the experience, and removing those and providing the space, the time for the body to come back to a state of equilibrium. These bodies are intelligent. They know what they require. They know what that state of health can feel like and can be. So if we come back to listening to these bodies, once the bad habits are removed, then that's where we're naturally going to begin to come back to, is that state of health. So if you remove the addiction to sugar, where the body tells you, I need energy, let's have sugar, if you remove that and instead start fueling the body with amino acids and rich forms of protein, then what the body's going to begin to do, at first it might kick and scream because it has been built into that habit and has become comfortable with that habit of demanding sugar, which is a quick fix, give me that quick fix of energy. But as you train the body and remove the reliance on the sugar or on the sweet stuff, on the carbs, on that quick energy fix, the body will begin to go, oh, okay, so when I feel that depletion in energy, it's protein that I ask for. It's this amino acid that I ask for. And then that's what the body's going to begin to do. If you remove the bad habit, which is the addiction, and install healthy habits without overriding what the body's telling you, then the body will communicate with you and will pick up on that and will begin to head again down that path to health, to wholeness, to harmony, to equilibrium. But it's innate and it's built into each and every one of us. So you have the ability to experience health, to experience harmony, to experience equilibrium. It's just about eliminating the things that are not that, feeling into what that is and how that feels for you, and then listening to that and installing that new and being okay with that looking different, looking unique and being expressed in a unique way for you, because every single body is different. There are bodies that thrive in certain temperature, that really like the cold, and there are others that really like the heat and really like the sun. And so it's different in all areas, right across the board. The way that it expresses and the way that these bodies, what these bodies require, is going to be different right across the board. So then you get to enjoy discovering what that is for you, how that feels for you, what that looks like for you, what that involves for you. And you come to know yourself in a different way, and you come to love yourself and to enjoy yourself in a different way when you begin treading that unique path that is intended for you. So take the time just to feel into that, get a sense of how that feels for you, and if that feels like something that you can work with. It's just keeping it really simple. Always. I'm just going to bring it back to be as simple as possible, because I really believe that we overcomplicate a lot of things, where a lot of these things that we try to do and force to happen naturally are happening in nature. And it's about coming back to that natural process and getting back in tune and in step with all of these natural processes, and then encouraging and feeding these natural processes as they unfold and as they occur. It's like the seasons. You can't stop that. I mean, we try to control it and we try to manipulate it, and we've done a lot with climate change to alter it, but we can't change it. It's beyond our control. It's something that naturally exists and that nature is cycling through constantly. Our bodies are the same. It's getting back in touch and back in flow with those rhythms and with those cycles, and learning to listen and to give the body the soil, the food, the rest, the things that it requires so that it can flourish through all of these different processes, through all these bodily seasons, and discovering what that is for you. So do less, feel more, come back to the feeling of it and act out of that feeling. The body will talk to you. You just need to come in, be quiet, stop doing, and listen.